Back when I was a cashier at Borders, we had to keep a certain percentage of Borders rewards transactions. I was good at my job and was able to get in the high 80s, low 90s every month by being a good salesman and convincing them to get it. Here's the thing, management only cared BC he was blatant about it. They were thrilled at his stats regardless of how he got them. They usually get bonus incentives.
Edited 19 days ago. Ballcock. Your mum was at Lowe's looking for a ballcock. Some aircraft do have toilets. ... In high school we had to do 4 book reports every year. A friend of mine did his on each Lord of the Rings books and The Hobbit freshman year and turned in the same 4 book reports for the rest of his time in high school. You switched English teachers every year so no one ever caught on. I was never brave enough to try the same thing.
My professor asked me to check the answer sheets of a test. That's really just an updated version of having the master answer sheet they would use. They punch holes in a sheet with the correct answers, lay it over the students' answer sheets, and mark any that were blank. Although your way would do the totaling and percentage automatically, I guess. Call you suggest a link with instructions to build something like this?
This was at my first job at McDonald's. Every time a customer filled out a receipt survey we got a $5 gift card. For a college student, that's a lot of money, so I would take home all the leftover receipts after my shift and fill them all out under my name.
Someone gave me a report they'd been doing manually for literally years, using nothing but Excel and Access databases that took 2 people upwards of nearly 3 hours to complete. What did you use to do the automation?
Back in my Army days, we were on exercise and tasked to dig in the armored vehicles. This normally involves shoveling dirt mounds up around the sides of the vehicles which face the security perimeter. My girlfriend is lawyer and I'm developer. At her place they manually compare documents they received after the other party signed them. It is not uncommon the other party to add something or remove something from contract without track changes etc. So I taught her how to use diff, compare program that works not only with code, but all kind of docs. She already caught some attempts for the other side to modify long contracts without consent. So comparing docs went from hour-long to minute-long task. When lawyers finally start using technology well, the billable hour will be in peril.
Edited 19 days ago. Did you email it to her and expose your methods or did you explain a different method?
A long time ago I was sent to help a team that was designing some analog test equipment. Big problem was when 2 of the parts were at different temperatures the calibration would go off. They wanted me to design a circuit to measure the temperatures of the 2 parts and apply a correction. I solved the problem by putting both parts on the same heat sink so they would be at the same temperature. It worked.
My friend who'd take his baby's clothes off when he fed him. Next level brilliant. Spray the kid off after. Good plan, until the baby starts preschool and proceeds to strip off his clothes every day before lunch. That's just going to produce an adult who only really likes how food tastes when he's naked.
I was working a kids' chess summer camp with this guy who just horked down pot like you wouldn't believe, still a far, far better chess player than me. That reminds me when I was a teen and did after-school babysitting for 2 little girls who lived in my neighborhood. I'd be tired myself after school, so I'd just let them play dress up with the clothes in my closet. They loved it and all I had to do was sit on my bed and chill out while they played.
Edited 19 days ago. Edited 19 days ago. Did similar in a smaller firm. Got a 50% raise when my boss found out and he asked me to automate other work. That's where I went wrong. I made my tools available to my team, saves everyone on the team multiple hours a day, so there was slack in the schedule. Then I lost my job in a restructure because I was the most expensive person on the team.
At my last job, a truck suspension shop, we did inventory every December and it was someone's job to count all the washers and screws of every size. Ideally, you'd want to weigh 10 or 20 to account for variations in weight. I had an absolute bitch of a boss at a restaurant. This lady was trying to be promoted so hard and was just so extra about everything.
My dad and I were working on my grandma's water heater a couple of years ago. We needed a cork or something to go over the end of the pipe. I had a bottle of Coke in my hand. I downed the Coke and put the cap on the end of the pipe as a joke, but it fit perfectly, so we kept it there. When my grandma sold the house 5 years later, that cap was still on the end of the pipe. Wait, you plugged the pressure relief, excess pipe for the water heater? And the home inspector in the sale didn't call that out?
Edited 19 days ago. Award from Henry Black. A programmer outsourced his own job overseas, paying Chinese programmers 1/5 of his salary to write code for him, while he spent his days surfing Reddit and watching cat videos. His performance reviews praised him for clean, well-written code and called him the best developer in the building. This reminded me of an Onion video where eventually the outsourced workers outsource the outsourced work.
The only thing I can take away from this is, I work in a semi-warehouse environment and we have to track where items are at all times. When we move X item from location A to location B, we had to type out the to and from locations. We do this hundreds of times a shift. I did something like that when I worked at a movie rental store. The computers made you sign back in after something like 15 seconds of inactivity. It was so unproductive. After a week or two at the job, I bought some stickers and printed barcodes onto the back of my ID badge. One barcode had my ID, the other had my password. I could scan them both in a second or two. I avoided telling my boss cause I didn't want to get in trouble, but eventually he found out, and when he did, he had me print barcodes for everyone. Just thinking about that computer system makes me mad, and it's been over a decade. I'm in corporate accounting, and I'm the only one in my department with a CPA. Of course, I have to take continuing education for my license, and I usually take as many hours of Excel courses as I can each year. Edited 19 days ago. I showed my boss the copy-paste shortcut at my first full-time job a few months ago, and he started bragging about me to the IT director. Got hired for a 3-week temp job that was transporting strings of text from a text document that the company's app produced, into separate Excel sheets relating to what the string in the text document was. It was hundreds of thousands of lines of records of which Office was printing, calling, emailing, basically any time the network was used. They were making graphs about how much of call time was to what department, customer, etc., and things like that.
In one of my early IT jobs, I spent about 2 months automating everything I did. Thereafter, I spent my days in air-conditioned isolation reading, hacking out entirely unrelated programs, engaging in protracted debates on Usenet, and responding to the very rare client problem. The key is to take off your automated processes so that the place turns into a total shitshow without you. Can't be let go for redundancy if your absence makes everything a dumpster fire.
I used to have to make 2 contracts for every person I brought on a traveling training team. I said 2 contracts was stupid and made them into 1, sent it to our lawyers, and they approved it. Still took me too goddamn long to update each contract with different names, pay rates, and dates. Went on Excel and found out how to make a mailer list, and hours of work takes me 10 minutes. I didn't tell anyone this though, so I just take my time. Fuck yeah. This is the way to learn, do stuff. Nice work.
Edited 19 days ago. Edited 19 days ago.
I did this. Sounds like he was really overthinking the problem.
My buddy wasn't so much lazy as he abhorred inefficiency. So nearly 20 years ago he worked for a company that sold slightly differing models of widgets. His job was a secondary inventory of what widgets were in stock. Primary was based on receiving and sales, and it was tracked with a long barcode. Widgets were stored in a warehouse and might be pulled by a salesperson to show a customer. Inventory was weekly and would take that long to collect, compile, and submit it the manual way his boss and predecessor managed the process.
I used to deliver beer. I did not like delivering beer. I may have ended up with 30 stops in a day, including deliveries that the customer would call into our office for. I used to bring extra beer and blank invoices with me on the truck, to prevent having to drive back to my warehouse to deliver one keg to a place that I was currently across the street from. 7 years later, the driver of that route is still doing that. Awards from Mick to Link.
Edited 19 days ago.
I used to process HSA claims, around 10+ years ago. One system we had to use back then was an old as hell terminal program that took 4 line items per page, that's it. For a usual claim, no big deal, not too hard to keep track of things over 2 or 3 pages. For a longer claim, most fit on one. You created a threat to her job, not a tool to save time. At least that's how a lot of people see it. I've had at least a dozen people react the same way across firms over the years, the latest one was last week. However, her reason was creativity over productivity. She believes computers can't do her job.
I don't know that I have a specific example, but a buddy of mine and I used to spend our time working out the most efficient way to do our jobs. LMAO damn. 9 months ago, I'd made my job so easy it was eliminated. Be careful what you wish for.
Was me. Supervisor wanted me and another guy mark the hydraulic hoses in this pit so second shift could jump right in and start replacing. Fine, but that involves someone getting a harness, waiting for security to come sniff the pit for gases, fill out confined space forms, get them signed, etc. I asked, do they have to be marked in any order or way? Supervisor said no, just need some kinda identifying mark. So I said okay, got it. Told the other guy to hop on my cart to see what we need and to bring a broom. He was like okay. So on my way over there I said, ya see how I asked if he just wanted them marked? Oh yay. Well, using this yellow paint pen, that broom handle and some electrical tape, I bet we can mark them through the floor grate. ... Sure enough, drew a yellow line down a section of each hose, haha. Came back and supervisor was like, well. I said, well what? We marked 'em, it's done. What, how? Showed him my paint marker broom, he just kinda stood there, then laughed and shook his head.
My teacher not wanting to grade papers, so he gives us easy shit to do. Edited 19 days ago.
Need to count 300 pieces of paper? Print 300 blank pages.
Electrical engineer here. I'm pretty sure my entire field exists out of laziness. I think all fields exist out of some degree of laziness, since we develop technology, and by extension most fields out of a desire to do less manual work.
I once was a temp at a tiny office on a construction site in around 2003. I was only there for one day while the regular person was on some training. Had a manager that would manually delete every email from his work inbox. I'll never forget the look he gave me when I clicked the Select All button that was clearly visible the entire time. There are way too many people who think computers are just typewriters with a bunch of weird extra shit on them.
Edited 19 days ago. Made a Python app to some of us that sounds like magic beyond our comprehension. Well done.
I distinguish 4 types. There are clever, hardworking, stupid, and lazy officers. Usually 2 characteristics are combined. Some are clever and hardworking, their place is the general staff. The next ones are stupid and lazy, they make up 90% of every army and are suited to routine duties. Anyone who is both clever and lazy is qualified for the highest leadership duties, because he possesses the mental clarity and strength of nerve necessary for difficult decisions. One must beware of anyone who is both stupid and hard-working. He must not be entrusted with any responsibility because he will always only cause damage.
I worked at a chain restaurant, and in my last few months there we got those stupid table kiosks that customers could pay at There was a survey at the end of every transaction, and our managers added new performance metrics based on how many people paid using the kiosk and also how well our service was based on the surveys. I worked at chain restaurant, and my first manager literally told us to do surveys for ourselves so our store would be near the top of the district.
The joys of being a parent. As the parent of 2 hyperactive boys, I invented a game called the steamroller game. I would lie down across one end of the bed and the kids would start jumping. At some random point I would make a motor noise and roll across the bed. If they didn't jump in time I would roll right over them. They loved that game. Edited 19 days ago. Machine, N.A. A device consisting of fixed and moving parts that modifies mechanical energy and transmits it in a more useful form. In high school I had an absolute ass of a teacher. He gave me a binder that had the name, address, phone, of every student in the entire district, including the names of all of their siblings. I was to type this in even though it was already printed out. We decided on a new plan. I'm automating shit all the time, but I don't tell anyone how I'm doing it. My work already looks like magic to most, so the muggles can't distinguish regular magic from my higher form magic. Right, I'm a data warehouse engineer, but my business card might as well say wizard, the way most people interpret anything computer related.
One time we were selling an electric lift at work and I loaded it with the forklift, but we had to push it all the way into his truck at a weird angle. They had some ideas, but before they could stop me from doing it the way I wanted, I just pushed in by its forks with my forks, touched tips all the way in, worked perfectly. I had the opposite happen to me. What I thought was an awesome idea turned out to be a nightmare.
Edited 19 days ago.
I worked in a CNC shop. There is actually a field of study about optimizing work setup efficiently. That company could probably use an industrial engineer.
I work in finance at a large multinational corporation. I feel like a big part of our job is to just stop doing things and wait to see who complains. If someone complains, we keep doing it. If silence, then we call it a controlled drop and put it on our performance review for creating efficiencies. Years ago I was completing a daily report that was saved on the shared drive, that 4 different people needed. I skipped it 1 week and no one said anything. Ditto on the second week. Finally, I put a message on the report that said, if you need this report, please contact THEBLUEWITCH, and I never touched the report again.
I did one of my university degrees through distance ed, had one class where the professor was a nightmare and would assign hundreds of pages of readings per week. Nobody could keep up because of the sheer volume. On top of that, it was a pain to try and read them because they were all PDFs and tablets weren't really affordable yet. Edited 19 days ago. This is one of the most incredible paragraphs I've ever read, and I'm very much interested in hearing more about yak herding. My bet would be the noise is what scares them.
Edited 19 days ago. Ha! Engineers are the same everywhere. I work in composite material manufacturing. I'm an abrasion technician.
In my first proper job, I got unexpectedly promoted to a mixed developer, sysadmin role, where a large part of my job was setting up accounts for students, giving them access to some form of public webspace, emails and mailing lists, etc. The guy before me had done everything by hand, so the tasks took hours to do. Being lazy, I scripted, automated the lot, got it down to a handful of minutes work, then spent the rest of the day reading in the peace and quiet of the server room. It was the early 2000s, so the internet was still a bit voodoo to most people.
This is a best example I've done not seen. For the last few years at the beginning of December I'm in charge of decorating the tree, in charge of meaning I have to do it, not I have any new holiday authority of said process. It's a fake 8 feet tall one with pre-set lights that spins, and we have to put it on a 2 feet stand so the dogs don't fuck with it. Most of the time, I stood there thinking of how many times I'd have to move the ladder to decorate this now 10 feet tall tree with all of our ornaments and garland and shiny bead strings. Nightmare. After 10 seconds I decided to turn on the spin feature, and it took me 20 minutes of placing ornaments which I had to pay attention to and 15 of holding the beads, garland while the tree spun opposed to the normal 2-ish hours it would have taken otherwise, which I did basically watching YouTube videos. Maybe not the most impressive story here, but I thought it was a great sidestep of effort nonetheless. Growing up we didn't have large stuff pickup mattresses, old appliances, that sort of thing, so anytime my dad needed something gone like that, he'd sit it by the trash can, and on trash day he'd have me put a 6-pack on the pile while I waited for the school bus, as the trash ran within minutes of the bus. It never failed, whatever was piled up was gone.
I am in rat quote and I don't like it. Plus you're not going to make typos if it's copying it directly. That's the way to do it. Teacher here. We have a 3rd grade classroom with mixed ages. This year, we decided to assign a big project in pairs. We have a 3rd grade boy who's cynical, argumentative, and refuses to do work even though he's extremely intelligent and capable. We decided in an effort to get work out of him, we'd pair him with a very energetic kindergarten boy that has underdeveloped, 5-year-old, reading and writing skills. Anyway, the older boy typed sentences on the computer in big 20-point text and gave it to the kindergarten boy to trace on our light board, as well as pictures to color. Well played. I worked a summer at a mortgage company as an assistant to the underwriters. My only job was printing documents and then hole punching them to put in folders. They had a super fancy Xerox printer that basically did my entire job for me, but the underwriters at this company didn't know how to click through printer settings to make the machine hole punch as it was being printed. I showed them how to do it, and they resisted it super hard, like they didn't trust it. IDK. So I got to keep my job, but what was supposed to take me all day literally took me about 20 to 30 minutes first thing in the morning. So they started assigning me real tasks, and even offered to keep me on to eventually become an underwriter, too. Because I was so sharp. I.e., I knew how to use the very expensive printer they already had. I was just about to start grad school, so I had to politely decline. But I'm pretty sure they didn't hire someone to replace me when I left.
Night auditor here.
I have one girl on my work team who is really odd in her work habits. If she works with other people within eyesight of her, she is constantly taking breaks, on her phone, sitting around doing nothing, etc. She will somehow find ways to not get anything done when other people are near her.
I worked for a company that used to calculate commissions to its sales staff via hand.
Edited 19 days ago. One of my favorite web comics. Dude, I just put them on a plate and eat them carefully. With my face. No mess, no crumbs. They stick to the tongue nicely and can be reeled in like that. No pausing needed.
Back in high school I was taking a chemistry test. Our teacher gave us a packet of 150 random questions with the answers on it, where 50 would be on the final test. Worked as a cashier during the holiday season back when I was 16. The supermarket was selling drinks by the boxes, and at that time, we only had barcode scanners that was at the front of the computer. No gun-type scanners existed. Tons of stores do that just with a printed-out sheet. You could have taken pictures of all the barcodes and made a beautifully labeled collage. I started out in my current job as a mid-level manager.
Edited 19 days ago. Comment theme: don't do your job too well, otherwise you or someone else will get fired. Amazon warehouse, working with a guy who wouldn't stop complaining. He knew he had to do enough to keep his job, as you're always measured on productivity, but he would let you know how much he hated his work every time he saw you. He did, however, turn half of his complaint into actionable ideas.
Award from Lebanese Lion. I was in a similar situation, although no one got fired thankfully. I inherited a job where the last person spent half their time manually typing numbers into Excel. I turned a bunch of 5-hour jobs into 5-minute jobs and made the job really easy. I was only in a 1-year assignment and spent a lot of it automating everything and got a promotion afterwards, so it all worked out. Still though, using technology right can get rid of a lot of jobs. I work in corporate finance, and we can do the same stuff with a team of 4 that 20 people were doing 30 years ago. I had an Excel order form in my last job that required us to enter all hardware items from all suppliers in by hand. Ya got me on that last thing. Was tiling a bathroom floor. One young guy the first was working with was cleaning up when we were done. I told him to take the leftover tile back downstairs to the truck, and then went back to cleaning what I was doing. 10 seconds later I hear this huge crash and then a soft, "Oh, right." He had gone out onto the balcony and dropped them down to the truck, shattering over $100 worth of tile. He said he thought it would be faster. He wasn't exactly wrong. That's a special kind of stupid. But also $100 of tile is probably like 8 tiles lol, right?
I remember having to peel 20 kilograms of charred eggplant at a restaurant I worked in. I asked the chef if there was an easier way to do it. His reply was, "Yep, get someone else to do it." I always ask chefs I come across any tips they have about garlic. One recommended sprinkling salt over the chopping board first, the salt absorbs garlic flavoring and you can use it as seasoning. Another said to put a whole bunch in some oil, heat it lightly in a pan in the oven, giving sweet garlic plus garlic oil. The best one ever though was, get the apprentice to peel it. I ain't got time for that shit.
Myself. Worked for a semiconductor company and we had 9 interns running simulations to optimize a substrate for a new semiconductor called 3D Crosspoint, aka 3D NAND memory. Anyways, I got tired of manually reading outputs on a DOS screen, so I wrote a small Python script to scrub the outputs, take note of interesting data ranges, and then use Google's Vector API to generate a 3D heat map. You could click on the heat map and it would show you the conditions under which that data was generated. However, the output was in a format only I could read. I went from running 50 simulations per day to running 500,000. My boss was flabbergasted, and gave me the computers the other interns were using to run more simulations. They got moved to a paper-pushing department. When my internship ended, they had no way of reading the output of the script without me, so they had to buy the script from me separately for more than triple my total pay for the period. Worked like a charm.
I work in IT and we have a guy that we tried this out with, and I'll be damned if he didn't figure out a way to do it so quickly. It's like he didn't have to do anything at all. We sent the ticket over to him, he said he felt sick and went home, and then I had to do it anyways. Genius.
I have an example of how the truly lazy will sabotage tracking so no one knows shit is broken. How is that even possible? He just straight up ignored bugs and nobody noticed? That's crazy. Must have been an EA dev. I had to research a U.S. senator or something, Dick Durbin, and I couldn't find a lot of information on him. I didn't want to spend 1 to 2 hours researching somebody I didn't care about. So I went to his website and directly emailed him my research questions. He never responded. I did more or less the same thing. But it ended up working.
Edited 19 days ago. Imagine slowing down production for a $3 product not being in the box. They could have installed a boxing glove to just punch off the defective product, one of the minimum wage handset types on the assembly line. When sweeping the concession stand at the movie theater I work at, instead of using the dustpan to slowly pick up all the trash, I sweep it all to one end and put the trash can on the floor and sweep it straight into there. Well, that's just plain efficient. I'm surprised it would be done any other way. We used leaf blowers. Blow all the trash to the front and then scoop it up. Worked like a charm. We did have someone walk the aisles afterward to spot check. Awards from Cannibalistic Antonym and Foreign Stranger. Go to Starbucks or something and crank it out. He didn't want us using formulas because you can't trust them to be right. Did you work for Dunder Mifflin or something? Awards from Jew Heinz. Awards from Vril 22. That guy was a genius. Kumar, I'm so sorry to hear about your wife dying in that tragic accident. Every programmer ever. I'm currently in college studying computer science and have been doing it since freshman year of high school, and one of the things my high school CS teacher told me over those 4 years was that programmers are the laziest humans on earth, also that it doesn't matter how idiot professor you make your program, God will always make a better idiot.
Who has the story about the admiral moving an entire ship to get the sun out of his eyes during breakfast? I was once on a U.S. military ship, having breakfast in the wardroom officers' lounge when the operations officer ops walks in. This guy was the definition of not a morning person. He's still half asleep, bleary-eyed, basically a zombie with a bagel. He sits down across from me to eat his bagel and is just barely conscious. My back is to the outboard side of the ship, and the morning sun is blazing in one of the portholes, putting a big bright-ass circle of light right on his barely conscious face. He's squinting and chewing and basically just remembering how to be alive for today. It's painful to watch.
Edited 19 days ago. Wait, the printer was able to staple the pages into a packet for you? I did this once but backwards. Junior quantity surveyor. My boss used to make me check the calculations on bills of quantities from contractors.
My co-worker's solution was to just disappear for 75% of her shift and just leave me to do it.
I have a friend who started a business, and essentially has a life goal of making the most money possible by doing the least work possible.